morning, everyone. Welcome to another segment of Flyera, Gonna Flyer, our second edition of this series. Welcome aboard. My name is Alex Fournette. I'm going to give you a big, giant recap of the season, give some letter grades. Then we're going to talk about some off-season predictions and maybe even sprinkle a little bit of Michkov talk in there. But today, I am not alone. With me, I have not one but two guests from the Flyers nitty-gritty. Introduce him first, one of the young and up-and-coming journalists of the Flyers nitty-gritty. We have Dylan Robillard.
How's it going?
Good morning, Dylan. How are you doing today, buddy?
Not too bad. Woke up like 14 minutes ago. So
he's running, but he's going to be running, and the engine's going to get going as we start recording. And number two, we got the seasoned vet of the Flyers nitty-gritty. Let me introduce you one of the nicest people I know on the planet, Mr. Jamey Baskow.
Hey, aloha, aloha, aloha. Good morning.
Jamey, how are we doing today on this beautiful, well, maybe not so beautiful over there. It's nice where I'm at right now, but I'm hearing it's a little rainy over there right now.
Yeah. Noah has flag football later. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's raining, but we'll see how it goes. But right now it's geared up for some Flyers talk, so let's get down. Let's go Flyers, man. It never ends. It never ends in Flyer land, man.
Oh, my God. The story that never ends with this team. So we're going to get right into it, folks. Today, we're going to be doing a little bit of a season recap. I'm going to give some, as I stated prior, season recap, gives our own personal letter grades about what we think about the team, who stood out, who disappointed, we think our team MVP was. And then we're going to segue into some off-season talk, maybe some predictions, who might impress you for the upcoming draft. And maybe we'll even, like I said, sprinkle a little bit of Michkov talk. So we got some news on that this week. That could be a little optimistic. So, folks, let's get right into it. Jamey, would you like to start? Maybe give us a little bit of a rundown of what you thought about this season?
Yeah, I thought, honestly, from a Flyers standpoint, I thought it was very good, and the fans should be happy as well. Before the season started on a few podcasts, I did say that the Flyers would finish with 84 to 87 points, and I thought that they would be on the outside looking in for the playoffs. So they finished actually a little better than I even projected. I thought that it would take at least 90 points or more to obtain that second wild card spot. So I had them just missing. So the Flyers finished ultimately right around the point area that I thought they would. Usually, first-year head coaches, the team takes the next step the following year, and I think the Flyers took a huge leap, a huge step. They cleaned out the locker room from the mess that there was the year before, and they did a good job in that area, from Danny Briere and the Flyers front office. So, a lot of players, believe it or not, the youth really came forth for John Tortorella and the Flyers. There are a lot of players that overachieved, in my opinion, on the youth aspect. And I think that's something that Flyers fans should be happy about and ride home about, headed in now into the offseason. I think that they actually have a clear direction, a clear path, and it may be even better. I know you're going to talk about Matvei Michkov, it may be even better now. Maybe the rebuild speeds up by a year or two, if he indeed does come over. But, let's just act like he isn't coming over right now because no one knows at the moment. So with that being said, I think that the Flyers actually sit in the driver's seat. I think they sit in a good spot. If they want to sprinkle some little additions, if they want to go move up, they got plenty of capital to move up in this draft. If they want to, possibly move in to the top 10 if they would like. The Flyers have the ammunition to do so. There's nothing holding Danny Briere and the Flyers front office back. And that's what makes it so interesting. I think that, where the Flyers, currently sit at 12, maybe they move up 2 slots. Maybe they like a player. Maybe they like TpugwithMedia. I think they'll have to move up to 9 or 8 to get him. I can't see Calgary trading him because I can see TpugwithMedia being pegged, for Calgary because of, Jerome McGinley and the history there. So if the Flyers move up, I think they'd have to move up to 8 if that's their guy. The teams always have their guys. So it's going to be an interesting offseason to say the least. It's going to be very busy, and I expect maybe a buyout to come in June.
I think that sounds about right. Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of moving pieces over these next couple weeks. Maybe not this month as much, but probably once we segue closer to June and July, we're gonna really see how this plan really facilitates.
With that being said, I mentioned a buyout, but I have to address this to Flyer fans, because some Flyer fans are probably thinking Ryan Johansson. Ryan Johansson cannot be bought out because he's hurt. I just want to make that clear. That's not the guy that I was thinking that they would buy out.
Yeah, I think it's likely going to be one of Cam Atkinson or
that's I think it's, in my personal opinion. But how I would handle it, I'd let him try to go strong midway through the season. Halfway, hope for a rebound, and then you could maybe trade him for some assets. But I don't know. With the writing just seems to be on the wall for Flyers' departure.
I hear you with that one. Dylan, how about yourself? How would you think this season has gone as a whole? Success, failure? Let's hear.
I mean, I probably couldn't say it better myself than what Jamey did, but it was probably a success for what the expectations were. I also had the Flyers kind of coming out hot and just being like that middle ground team. They weren't going to be a bottom five like everyone thought. I mean, that was kind of just the expectation after last year, and then Tortorella taking over and Danny Briere. They weren't going to just take it and rebuild, and well, I guess they are rebuilding, but they weren't just going to tank and
it wasn't
take it on
like
the
a Buffalo or Ottawa type of thing where they just bottom out constantly. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I wouldn't call it a retool, but it was kind of a lower rebuild almost, where you kind of just don't break it down completely, but you pick away at pieces. And I mean, that's what Danny Briere did. And what Jamey said, they tore down the locker room a bit, fixed it up, like literally fixed it up, and then got rid of what they needed to, and probably will this offseason. I mean,
I anticipate a few more pieces probably to be moving. But coming into this, I look at the Flyers season as a whole. I do agree with you too. I think it was a success. It is disappointing how it ended, because my expectations for playoffs officially began around January. I still, until about that halfway point, was not really pressing the playoff button until around then, because they were great, getting great goaltending that first half of the year, and then obviously what happened with Carter Hart happened, and that was the end of that. And it just kind of never really felt like they hit that base that they had before. I think a lot of guys really stood out this year. Tyson Forster was absolutely phenomenal. First half of the year, he kind of struggled that first quarter. He played good, but he could never find the back of the net. Then around December, it felt like a switch was flipped, and he really started finding his game. Konechny was right about what I expected. I'm maybe a little bit lower in the goal perspective. I thought he could potentially push 40 after the year he had. 33 goals. He did miss a little bit of time due to injury. Never felt like he was quite 100% after that oblique issue. And then obviously in the Cutter Gauthier situation, which floored us all. I don't think any of us expected him to be out and Jamie Drysdale to be in January. But, Jamey, for the position he was put in, I think handled himself well. He's a young player who's absolutely great when it comes to skating around the blue line. His speed is awesome. He can cut it a dime. I think the Flyers really have a future top four defenseman in this, can maybe even a top pairing guy. I'm really hoping it's a top pairing guy, especially for what you traded. But yeah, I think he played great. Owen Tippett was an absolute shooting machine, and we got to see a few moments where his speed absolutely blistered. Where like, oh my god, I watched this guy skate.
Probably the goal of the decade for the Flyers.
Oh my, one of the goals. It's up there with that Giroux goal that he pulled against Tampa. He went through three guys like a hot butter through knife, but that spin goal he had against Dallas was grotesque. That was absolutely incredible.
That was probably the goal. In my personal opinion, that's probably the goal of the decade.
Yeah, it's up there. It's definitely debatable. I could listen to that argument, but as a whole, I agree with you guys. It's success as a whole. 38, 33, and 11. The 8-game losing streak kind of put a little bit of a watered down feeling towards the end of it, but as a whole, I think we saw positive steps. Sam Ersson got put into a tough predicament. I think until that last month, he kind of handled himself well when the wear and tear started showing in the injuries and the decor blew up. But yeah, as a whole, I look at this team. I'm excited for what's next. I think we're going to see a handful of moving pieces. I think you're going to see at least 3 or 4 guys maybe on this forward core no longer here next year, maybe 1 or 2 on the D core. So I expect a lot of like I just stated, a lot of moving pieces. I think it's going to be an off season to really just zone in on some guys. I don't think they're going to make much of a free agency splash, but we'll get more into that once we talk about the off season part of this. But yeah, overall, quick recap, just to say, I think they had a good season, success. I hope they can build off this. I hope the young guys can continue making a step forward. And I look forward to see what Danny and John and Jonesy have in store for the offseason, how to potentially improve this team and take that next step forward and maybe even being a playoff team next year. Whether they are or not, I just want to keep seeing progression out of these young guys because it was probably the funnest season for the Flyers I've had in at least 4 years. Like it's and probably since that 1920 bubble year that I've had this much excitement watching them, even with the collapse personally. But yeah, overall good season. Let's move on to some letter grades. If you want, I can segue into this. So I wrote down a list of guys who I thought was their MVP, most improved, most disappointed in. I'm not going to go through every player because I could keep you guys here all day. So I'll just do some of the guys that stand out. The guy I gave the highest letter grade to this year was Cam York. I gave him an A. I thought he really took a giant step forward this year, especially in the second half of the year when he was forced to eat a lot of minutes, especially when the injuries piled up. And he just did a lot of things that you look for from a top pairing defenseman. He was never really out of position, smart in his own end, good with facilitating the puck. He was breaking up odd man rushes, smart on the body. I look at a guy like Cam York, and he just flourished this year. And he played with some injuries too. Travis Sanheim, I believe, mentioned something at the end of the year. He's like, "Yeah, I was pretty banged up. You should hear what Yorkie had to deal with." He didn't. I don't think. It may have been vice versa. Maybe it was York saying that to Sanheim, but
York said that. York said that about Sanheim. Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, but still, he was still banged up, like you said. He had that AC shoulder sprain, and he shouldn't be playing. He shouldn't have played.
He was grade 2, right?
But he did. Yeah, it was a grade. Grade 2. It was a grade 2 AC shoulder sprain. He probably shouldn't have played the outdoor game. At the very least, but he did because he wasn't going to miss him.
It was around mid-February, I believe.
Yeah, that was the one I thought it was actual concussion as opposed to a shoulder sprain. But when we were at the outdoor practice, I'm sitting there with Charlie and Jordan. I was like, well, I doesn't look to be a concussion now. I thought it was. I won't speak on their behalf because we were chatting and stuff. But now he wasn't wearing the tinted visor on the ice because it was a very sunny day that day. And he happened to be on the ice practicing. So I immediately knew then it wasn't concussion, that it was something else, but I didn't even know it was that, because I didn't see his shoulder get hurt. But
but I'm glad he showed balls. He showed perseverance. He showed someone that is really worth building around. He's one of those guys, like, I don't know if you can really say anyone is truly untouchable, but he's one of those guys I'd put at the very bottom of the list. Like, you want to build around this kid. He's going to be here for a while. He's an important piece of this blue line, and he really stepped up this year. He was, in my opinion, my defensive MVP bare minimum. I'll go down the list, skip a few other guys. I gave Tyson Forrester a B+. I thought he was, like I said, really broke out this year. I only didn't give him an A because he was a little bit streaky. Like that first quarter of the year, he kind of like – it took him a while to really find his game, and he was doing all the right things, but he wasn't really seeing the results. And then, like I said, December, that Pittsburgh back-to-back is when I really saw the switch flip with him, and it really started just meshing with this team. I think he had 5 goals in 5 games in that span. But he showed bits of streakiness, but he showed true talent as a guy that I feel like they hit in the bottom stage of the – what did they get him? I think it was like pick 21. He was a lower first-round pick, if I remember correctly. He looks like a real hit that they got in that lower stage of the first round, a guy that it feels like that you can plug and play in your top 6 for a while. I think you have a real potential to see this kid play second and maybe even first-line minutes next year at the right position for him.
Yeah, what drug him down in terms of the draft was his skating. That was a big knock on Tyson Forrester. And Garif and I had Paul Matheson, who was a skating coach, on the day after the draft. and we had an emergency podcast with Paul Matheson, and Paul was like, listen, I'm telling you, this kid is determined. Skating will not be an issue. Trust me, as he progresses and stuff. And he made a really good point. He said, what 18-year-old or 17-year-old doesn't have skating issues? He's like, it's very, very rare that not a single one of them has skating issues. Why aren't we focusing? He's like, I remember this whole episode. He was like, why aren't we focusing on getting bigger and stronger like most 17 and 18-year-olds have to do? They have to fill out, and they will fill out by the age of 21, but it takes time. But that's where the nutritionist comes in. And the Flyers, and he was playing for the Barrie Colts at the time. So Barrie has a very good nutritionist coach, nutrition program over there. And that wasn't a worrisome point for me either. Honestly, I wasn't really concerned at all about Tyson Forrester. What separates people is when they go to the AHL. At the junior level, they succeed. They go to the AHL. Now your skating has to be refined and defined by the time you make the AHL, because those players, you have 1 to 2 years, and either the organization has to move on, or possibly tops 3 years from a prospect like Tyson Forrester. If they're in the AHL for more than 3 to 4 years, now you're wondering, should we qualify him? Yeah, because most teams near the contractual limit of 50, so they don't have loads of time to be overly patient if they can't crack the NHL as being an NHL mainstay at that point. So do you qualify him? Do you not? Do you move on? Like Wade Allison, for instance, they traded Wade Allison. Look, 3 to 4 years, that felt the timeline. Yeah, and so I think, like skating, I understand why players drop at the draft. In the same token, I'm not an overly concerned person about skating from a 17-year-old and 18-year-old. That's not one of my things. I'm not a scout by any means, but that's not one of my things that I look, okay, this prospect may not because of his skating. Now, some players, don't do well at this skating area, that they've had. The Flyers have taken, numerous players that have had skating issues and not pan out. Strome, was for one. Remember Matt Strome? Remember his skating. He just didn't have it. You know what I mean? So they had to cut ties with him, even though he played well for the Reading Royals. He didn't find his niche in Lehigh. When he started to find his niche in Lehigh, it was a little too late. They had to make a decision and had to move on from him. So, but that's one of the reasons why he dropped to 21 at the draft. It had nothing to do in terms of, his shooting aspect. He was always, he always had that blistering shot, and it was just his skating. But now you're seeing a man. I'm going to be honest. I'm very high on Tyson. My grade for Tyson would be an A. And the only reason it's been a long time that the Flyers had a rookie score 20 or more goals in the season. So
I think Matt Reed was the last one that did it, if I remember.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And it doesn't happen often. And like you said, about first half of the season, he was figuring himself out with John Tortorella, who is a tough coach. This is his first year under a tough coach with John Tortorella. He's getting to know him. Tortorella's getting to know him, and the coaching staff for that matter. So it's a trying. Does he want to play the right way? He played the right way and stayed in the lineup. Does he want to just score? Okay. Don't play the right way. Don't play the two-way. Then possibly see the bench and possibly the AHL. So he was treading through the first half of the season trying to find his niche, and he did.
Yeah, he did. Dylan, do you have any take on that?
I mean, I gave him a B+, but I mean, he's worth an A. Jamey mentioned the 21st goals. It's been a while since a rookie's come in like that and potted 20. So, I mean, he had a great season, figured it out through the way, and I look forward to seeing what he's got coming up.
I mean, he had one of those seasons that you could say through the first half of the season how he struggled a bit, struggled scoring-wise, trying to find his way. And he could have possibly scored a 30 or more. Just imagine.
Yeah. I think he did all the good things you see on the ice in that first quarter of the season. You just weren't seeing it on the stat sheet. And then, I said, once that back-to-back happened against the Penguins, that's when the switch flipped. He really, that first and second goal hit, they started coming in bunches. And his shot is awesome. Like, this kid, he is someone that another kid. I put him in that York category of someone you need to make sure you build around, and I feel like he can play the left or the right too. That's one of the good things about Tyson. I feel like he can find success at either wing. But I'm going to bring up one more player on my end too, and then I can hear some of you guys' grades. A guy that one of the lower bottom six guys that really stood out for me was Ryan Poehling. I gave him a B, and he was everything you look for in a bottom six guy. This guy signed I think it was a 1-year deal at the time that when they got him, got a 2-year extension midseason just because of how much Tortorella loves him. And this is a guy who was a great penalty killer. He was pretty decent in the dot. He was gritty. He played the boards well. He was a good board checker. He did all the little good things you look for in a bottom six guy. I feel like the Flyers have their next Scott Laughton in this kid. Someone who you can really rely on, who will be a leader for this team, who will, stand up for teammates, who plays the body well and is just smart too. And I think Poehling's only, 24, 25? It's not like this kid's like an old aging vet. A guy like him, and I love Lotz. I think he's an awesome dude, but he might make a guy like Laughton expendable long term. Any take on Poehling? Any take on Poehling, you guys?
I mean, I even had him at an A. Like, for what he is and for what he needs to do, he executed it like really well. I mean, he's only 25. That's exactly what I saw with that extension for him, is that kind of Laughton replacement guy. But at the same time, you got to get rid of Laughton to do that. So, because then there's no point in re-signing him. But I'm not going to get into that. But
we'll save that for the off-season talk.
But yeah, just all around, he was good. He got second line minutes at times because he was playing really well, and he was very noticeable pretty much every game, all over.
Yeah, he always did the little things that stand out in the game. He never really seemed like he took a shift off, and that's what I liked about this guy. He has a lot of that Laughton DNA, who just comes out, plays hard every shift. He's a coach's dream. I mean, you know what you're going to get from a talent perspective. He can get you 30 points, 12 goals, 18 assists in a year, be a good penalty killer, good checker on your third, fourth line. That's all you can ask for a guy like that.
And I think he really resurrected his career here. I think he relished the role that he was given, initially. Hey, I'm going to try to be that guy, that Montreal, thought that they had in him. I saw some vision of Montreal, scoring some big goals in the playoffs. He scored some big goals for the Flyers this season, unexpectedly. And because I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect much. I thought it was a win-win, contract for the Flyers. Hey, produce or, find your niche, or, oh, well, it's only 1 year and we'll let you go. But he earned the next 2 years. He really did. He relished his role. He played it well, defined what the coaching staff needed of him or expected of him, before the season began, and relished it. I think he did well. I would have given him about a B+, A-, for the season, just because he did that well. He moved up and down the lineup, didn't complain, didn't cry. Even when he was on the second line and possibly he could go back to the fourth line, you didn't see him stomp, didn't you see him pissy, moany, or whatever. He just took it on the chin. He wanted to go play wherever the team needed him, wherever the coaching staff wanted him to play. That's where he fit. And him and Hathaway became very, very good friends, and it was great to see them at exit interviews. Both of them. Garnett spoke very highly of Ryan, and then Pale spoke very highly of Garnett. It was a vice versa thing for them, and it found out that he really loves the city of Philadelphia. He loves playing here. He has that attitude. I think it's a big thing. Attitude was a big thing this past all season for the Flyers. They wanted to get people that didn't have attitude problems, and they found it. Pales came in. Hey, you work hard is what he said. You work hard, you play hard. That's what the city of Philadelphia wants you to do. And that's what he did.
Yeah. And you know what? Isn't it ironic, too? We have a former Capital and a former Penguin forming a bond in Philly.
Yeah, right?
When you look at it that way.
I never even thought of that.
Every player on my list. Why don't you give me some of your letter grades, and we can divulge into that, and we'll move on to some off-season talk. Maybe 2 or 3 from each of you guys.
Yeah, Dylan, do you want to go first, or?
You can take it away.
I would give TK. I give TK an A. I think that he was hurt towards the tail end of the season. There, didn't want to bring that out. Didn't want to cry. Didn't want to make excuses for his play. I think from a scoring standpoint, it was definitely down towards the last 11 to 15 games of the season. He like Alex brought up earlier. Ever since he came back from that injury, he never seemed to have that push. You could definitely tell that he didn't have that gas in him, that extra step in his pep that he had, up until that injury. An oblique injury will definitely do that. I think he needed about 2 or 3 months. He probably came back earlier than he should have, but not saying he couldn't play. Because I want to make that clear because the Flyers medical staff has taken heat in prior years. This medical staff did a phenomenal job, I thought. If they honestly couldn't play, they weren't going to play him. This was not a player decision. They really thought that he could play. Maybe not at 100% because, granted, at that time of the season, what player is 100%? There really isn't a player that's 100% or not banged up in some way. So he was able to play enough, but he just didn't have that oomph. But I still give him an A because he took everything on the chin. He was that guy. He had a career high in goals. It's not like he retracted and went back to 21, 22 goals. He still went up in goals from the year prior. So to me, that's defined on leadership. He became a leader in the locker room. That guy who could open up and be a guy to come talk to for the youth. So I give him an A. Another person that I give an A to is Travis Sanheim. I thought that freaking dude relished it. Man, he resurrected his career. I thought my biggest worry of the offseason leading into the season was who the heck was going to take Ivan Provorov's minutes. And Travis Sanheim became that guy. I didn't expect him to. I honestly thought it would have to be by committee, like Torch thought. I really didn't expect Sanheim to come out and play this well. I always thought he played solid hockey, and I always thought that he was one of those players that Flyers fans, just not tried to push away, but just tried to get, okay, there's a mess. It's Sanheim's fault, or whatever, be that guy, be the fall guy, be the fall guy.
Exactly, that everyone went after.
And I really, good skating defensemen do not grow on trees in the NHL. And that's exactly what Travis Sanheim has been his entire career. And playing 25 to 27 minutes a night and not crying, not complaining, being hurt. How the hell did he play? The last month of the season, probably should have sat, probably should have been on the bench, plowed through, still played through the amount of minutes. To me, this guy was amazing. Another guy I thought that was amazing was Cam York. I would give him an A, like Alex said. Man, listen, I'm happy. I spoke with Rick before the show began. Rick's a Habs fan here. And, I spoke with him, and I was like, the one thing I'm happy about is that there's no Cole Caulfield, Cam York comparisons anymore when the two teams play each other. You saw that out the window. After York played, and he was playing so well, it's like, oh, crap, they do finally have a top, pairing defenseman in him. Wow. People didn't expect him to be the 1A, quasi 1B defenseman, this season. I didn't expect it. I thought he was going to be a middle pairing defenseman for the entire season. I thought he was being forced into a role and wouldn't. I thought, man, I was worried. I was honestly worried, but he freaking surprised me in a great way. Not saying I never thought that he could be that defenseman. I didn't expect it this soon. So Travis Sanheim was his mentor. Great job. I think that, Mark Stahl played a role there. Even though I would give him a D for the season, but I thought that he played a role in terms of, the mentorship. But another person I thought that should get an A was Samuel Ersson. Through what he had to deal with, Carter Hart's here, and then all of a sudden he's vanished. He's gone. Yeah, they just didn't know when it was going to happen, and for it to happen when the Flyers were rocking at that point. Remember that? Like they were unbeatable. It was like that tandem, the Hart-Urson tandem.
This, and
like the best tandem.
In the playoffs,
and then we wake up one day and kapoof, it's gone. Like it's gone. And for Samuel Ersson to just say, you know what, shrug it off as a rookie netminder, shrugging that off and still playing up to the expectations or even better than he should have. That's at home with me. And that in a good way. I really thought that, man, Sam Ersson had a hell of a season. That was a rocky start. Found his niche to become the backup netminder. He knew he was going to be the backup netminder, but it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier said than done. You play once every like 8 or 9 days. I don't know if he mentally prepared for that.
I think it was like once every 4 when Hart was here. It was
exactly.
Like,
and then it became, and then he started to see more starts.
Like he ripped off 25 30 games.
And then kapoof. Carter Hart's gone.
Yeah.
And he had to take that role.
Like the Avatar.
Yeah, exactly. And he did it well. So that those were my A grades there.
How about you, Dylan? Give me a couple of your grades.
I mean, I didn't have Ersson on my chart here, but I 100% agree. He started like over 40 games as a rookie, which is ridiculous. Like he stepped up.
Such a shit situation for sure.
He stepped up and just kept going, battled through it all. I mean, obviously some rough starts here and there, but it's expected. He's young. Like he didn't expect to be a starter. He didn't expect this many games. He expected to just be the 1B kind of backup and just play through it and just be the reliable second guy. And then maybe down the road, he's the first guy, but like it definitely wasn't expected to be this season and just suddenly in like 20 games into the season. So things flipped on him, but he just kept going and battled through it. I have Yurganov on this list. I have him at a D+. I just wanted to mention him because I don't think he's going to be back next season. I think he is going back home or something, or he's going to like Sweden or something.
Yeah, I think there's already reports that he was going to go back overseas.
But I just wanted to note him because for what he was for like the 4 games we had him, I mean, he was healthy scratch, which I kind of was disappointed in because I thought he still had something in him. He was really quick. He looked decent for what he was. We got him in the Wade Allison trade. So, I mean,
they only played him, 2 games, I think?
Like 3 or 4. Yeah, 2.
I feel like that was always a weird situation. You acquired this guy in a trade, and you didn't really give him that much.
He was there to help groom Ivan Fedotov with the transition to North America. They lived together. They lived together. They came to the rink together. Everything came together for Fedotov and Garyanov.
That's good, at least. At least you had his role as a mentor, which was nice.
Yeah. And I think the plan or the idea was that he was probably going to return home after the season anyways. And now, and it was just like, yeah, okay, well, thanks for letting us deal Allison. You can go home. And then I have Drysdale with a B+. For what he was and for what he came into, dealing with injuries and then still battling through another one. He got lucky with the shoulder injury this season.
I was terrified when I saw that hit.
That was
same thing as what happened. What was it, last year or 2 years ago with the label? And
it was the same shoulder. That was scary. But
did we ever get a full diagnosis what the injury was? Was it just a dislocation?
I think so. I forget. I don't
think that. I don't think it ever came out. It was just he just had a shoulder injury, and it just never came out to whether it was a sprain, what exactly it is. It's up to the player if they want to reveal, what the injury is. That's how the NHL operates, and even Torts has a fine line. They'll just say, "Oh, he'll be out a period of time." Yeah. He said that about who did he say? There was one time throughout his pressers, not at exit interviews throughout the season, and he was like, "Oh, Mark Stahl." Where Mark Stahl's injury, initial injury, and he said, no, he's going to miss some time.
I think he broke his foot then, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think he was out 6 weeks.
Yeah. The thing with Drysdale, I'm just glad. Now, there's reports he might need surgery. I don't know how that's going to
I was just going to mention that.
I don't think it's going to be major surgery from what I'm reading into, so hopefully he has at least half of the off season to really train and prepare for next year. And it's going to be good for this kid to really just have the opportunity to actually have a full training camp with Tortorella from get-go to start to finish now with the entirety of the season. Just see what the summer of Torts or maybe the fall of Torts technically is what really is. And just see him mesh into a role from start to finish with this team. I think he's going to be a big piece of this team's future. He's he just turned, I think, 22 years old. So you have a kid here that's going to really have a lot of room to still grow. I think you have top pairing potential with him. Like I said, the thing that stands out with him, he is such a good skater, and he's so good by the blue line. One of Rick's players there, Lane Hudson, he kind of reminds me of a bigger version of him when it comes to his game. Maybe not quite as good, but like he's very quick and agile with the puck. That's one of the things that really stand out to me. He can really create a play from the blue line with just how well he can facilitate.
Yeah. And then I have Sanheim similarly, an A+. I've always loved Sanheim. I've literally watched basically his whole junior career because he played in Calgary.
Yeah, darn right.
That's right.
With the Hitmen. That's right. That's a good program over there. See, I keep forgetting that you're over there.
Yeah, so I got to know him a bit, and I've watched him literally grow, and he's been that guy. Fans will disagree and say and put the blame on him, but I guess there's always someone they have to put the blame on.
Yeah,
but he takes it on the chin too, and just battles through it. After trade rumors and everything going on in this off season, he battled through and came through big this season and put up like top 20 minutes in the NHL. So,
what stands out to me the most about Sanheim is the year prior, he had such a rough year. And he was playing with Ristolainen practically the entire season. And, he just never could find that base he had from the year prior, 2 years ago in general. And this year, he just felt like he was practically that same player that earned that big extension. And, I hope he can be here and keep playing at that type of level, at least for the first half of his contract minimum. He looks like someone that is really ready to be a protege for all these young defensemen. Him and Saylor are going to be really the vets on this team. So,
and that's where Konechny came in a lot because they're best friends. And to see TK come over and man, those two, man, they're inseparable. And I was so happy when Sanheim. I'm so happy at this because they're best friends, and you never want to see that. One player, doing worse or whatever. That must have been hard the prior year.
TK already lost Nolan Patrick too, who was really close with as well. So it's good to at least see those two get to continue the bondship. I saw a video once that the Flyers YouTube put out. Sanheim's just laying down at the in the middle of the bench, and TK just skates over, unloosens the water bottle he has. He puts his back, and Sanheim sits up, grabs it, out of it. I was like, bro, that's like the level of trolling that you gotta love and appreciate from brothers like that. But let's talk about one last thing when it comes to the players grading. Team MVP, leads guy who most improved, and a guy you think disappointed the most. I'll start with you this time, Jamey.
So team MVP, I think rightfully was TK. I want to give an award, although it shouldn't. I wouldn't say most improved, but I thought the most underrated was Morgan Frost. I really thought that Morgan Frost freaking had a good season, and I was happy as heck to finally see him find his niche. But he handled all those benchings really, really well, like a pro. And I think that's a little underrated. It's not easy to continuously get benched and then come back 5 or 6 games later and then expect to play at your high pinnacle and then get benched again after 2 or 3 games and then come back and then play a few and then get benched again. But each time he got benched, it seemed like he roared and plowed through it. And at one time, he had that meeting with Torts. And ever since that meeting with Torts,
that was just like to bring that up. That's when the light
switch came on, and he was like, "Hold up, I'm clearing the air here. You know what? Screw you, Torts. That's pretty much how it went. And Torts probably said, you know what? Screw you too. And the two hashed it out like men, because Torts was very happy. He was like, oh man, he came to my office. I was happy as heck. That's what Torts wants. The reason he does these skatings and stuff, he wants to see if you're mentally tough to handle the rigors of the season. So he rips you down to the ground, right, mentally. And then you got to build yourself back up. And then by the time the end of the season comes, it's either A, you got it, or B, you don't, get the heck out. And those are the people that are being that he's trying to, and Danny Briere and the Flyers front office are trying to weed out. If you're not going to be mentally tough, then I don't know if you could be here if you're part of the solution. I mean, so that those are the players that are like, okay, it's time to, maybe it's time to part ways with, or maybe in a year or two we could part ways. They're not part of the long-term solution. That is what Torts and the Flyers front office is trying to do. And I think that Morgan Frost is a player to rebuild around. I don't care what anybody says, man. I'm telling you, with the way those Bentons and everything went, I don't think you could find another player rebound the way that Morgan Frost did. So to me, that's underrated. And
aspect of him is high.
Most improved, I think, rightfully so, was Cam York. He just came in. He stayed here. He was here. Him and Joel Farabee were here the longest. Cam York came in at the end of May, beginning of June, and never left. Same thing with Joel. Joel will be here again. Now he'll be in the World Championships. But once he comes, he'll never leave. You look, he's still around. He just doesn't want to go home. He's still around.
I think I saw him at a Phillies game.
Yeah,
with Frost, right?
Yeah. But I mean, they're all like, the team wants to be around each other, and that, to me, seeing all these pictures come out and all the players hanging out, and bringing their families, bringing their loved ones, bringing their spouses, bringing their girlfriends, bringing their whomever around. You're starting to see a sense of family finally with the team. And I think that that's great.
Yeah.
Dylan, give me your MVP, biggest breakout, and probably biggest disappointment.
Oh, I'm always pretty bad with these. I never
Do your best.
It's just so hard to I don't know. I mean, of course, TK had a great season. Overall, my MVP is probably Tippett or York. I mean, it's just what they bring to the team and what they had, the firepower, like the grit, but they're also scoring. They're also putting it up where it mattered. And when they weren't, they were hitting. They were being that guy in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Tippett, he had some dry spells, but I mean, goal scorers are streakers.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you can never really tell. But yeah, I had Tippett at a B-. I had York A+. These guys were difference makers when it mattered, and that's something you need. Was it most underrated? Is that what we categorized?
Well, that's what Jamey just did. I said biggest, pretty much most improved, and biggest disappointment.
Sorry.
Jamey doesn't have a bad bone in him.
Well, no. My disappointment was Mark Stahl, so he's finished with the D/F.
Yeah. I mean, I'm obviously not the biggest Morgan Frost supporter. I think we all know that, but I'll give him credit where it's due. I mean, I think he was what he was. I mean, yeah, Jamey said it. He battled through getting benched and all this other stuff and the media and the drama, but he still showed up. And I mean, I respect it. I mean, I still think he's a trade piece, something you'd look to move, but for what he came into, dealing with Torts, all this other stuff, and the media, he grew on me this season. Throughout the season, he grew on me, and I respect him for what he is. I think he can be a player you possibly build around. You kind of tweak him in there a little bit, around Tippett and all these other younger guys, especially Forrester. I guess I deem him as underrated, or most achieved, kind of in that middle ground. Disappointment. Yeah, I guess Stahl is your easy pick. Zamula I know he's still kind of on that fringe young seventh pairing guy, but he wasn't great. He wasn't amazing.
He kind of fell off the second half of the year. I kind of have to agree with that. He didn't start off too bad. He had a good game against Ottawa, I remember, right before the Hart news came out, and then I felt like the wheels came off in the second half of the year.
Yeah, he was kind of just floating there a bit. And I mean, not much he can do. He was kind of the 6th, 7th pairing guy, and he was kind of just a throw in. But and he also was undrafted. It's not like he was a first-round pick or second-round pick guy. I mean,
it's not like he got a Jay O'Brien situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't say there was anybody really disappointing this year. Everyone kind of stepped up in their own right. But yeah, Samuel is kind of that bottom guy for me, I think.
For me, my team MVP, I'm with Jamey. I have Travis Konechny. Guy who really stood out again, both on and off the ice. Great leader. Was on a goal-scoring rampage first half of the year. The oblique injury hit, and then the second half, he really didn't quite find what he was. I had him actually as an A- as my letter grade.
Yeah.
I do think he had a fantastic year as a whole. 33 goals. I think he played 76, 77 games. So the games played were a little bit higher, but he still played great as a whole. He showed as a leader.
Yeah.
And I think it's a guy that you have a big decision to make with long term of what he's going to potentially be offered money wise. Like, I love Konechny, and the only thing that worries me about him is when
Money.
he gets up there in age. He's kind of similar to Brad Marchand with the way he plays, and guys like that, I feel like, start to hit their decline relatively quickly. I don't necessarily think he could, because he could be like a Brad Marchand and end up playing well into his mid to even late 30s. But
Yeah.
I worry if you give a guy like that $9.5 million.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He ends up wearing down in the second.
Now we're talking. Yeah.
So I think it really just depends what his asking price is, or what because I love Konechny. I love everything he brings. He has balls. He has grit. He plays the game right. He plays the game hard. He never takes a shift off. He's snarky. He loves getting in people's heads. He's literally our Brad Marchand. It's a perfect comp, in my opinion. So when you look at a guy like that, he's probably, in reality, while he doesn't wear the C, I think he's like him and Coots, in my opinion. I look at co-captains of this team at the end of the day. He's just someone that is just so important to this team long term.
Absolutely. Well said.
I also agree with your most improved player. I have Cam York as well, just with him playing through the injury. His defense, I mean, he was such a staple of that blue line, especially when the injuries piled up in February. And, you know, him and Sanheim both battling something, and they just continue to eat top pairing minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Great. He was still awesome at his own end, never really made any dumb plays where you're like, oh, what are you doing there? Like, when you don't really think of when a defenseman is quiet for a game, I feel like, and you don't really think of them that much, it's not a bad thing. Because defensemen are the one that are usually the first guy to blame when something goes wrong. So there was games where Cam York really stood out, even offensively too. But then there was games he didn't really mention him that much. But at the end of the day, it's like, that's a good thing, because he's not making any mistakes. He's prone in his own end. He's getting the puck out. He's not making any dumb turnovers. He's a guy now we show that you want to build around. I think he's got true number 2 defenseman potential. Maybe if it keeps going up, you can even have that conversation for a number 1 D-man. I think he's closer to a number 2, but I think at the end of the day, you're going to see this kid really be a long-term staple for this team. And my biggest disappointment, this really hurts me to say, because I love this player. He's such a good dude. You've probably seen me at him so many times. I love Cam Atkinson, but he had such a rough year. The second half of the year, he just, after the All-Star break, he didn't have a point, if I remember correctly. And, you know, he looked like he was slow out there. He felt like when he was playing, with even the middle 6 minutes, that the lines weren't producing what they were. He was taking a lot of slap shots that were from low-quality shots of perspective. And it's just like, I love Cam. I want to see him succeed. He's probably one of my favorite players on this team, because he's such an awesome dude. And they traded for him on my 30th birthday. I remember back in 2021. It was the day of my 30th. And I was like, holy crap. Because he was one of those dudes I said at the time, I really want to see him here somehow, some way. Because he just seems like a perfect Flyer with how much he plays with heart.
Oh, yeah.
But you could really see it this year that the wheels came off hard, especially in this to the second and third.
Absolutely.
And, you know, he I want to see him succeed somewhere. I think there's actually a path to potentially trading him if you eat half of that contract this offseason, because he only has 1 year left. You could potentially convince a team, hey, listen, I know we had a rough year end of the year, but this is a guy who could probably still play bottom 6 minutes for you and potentially put up 15, 20, maybe even 20 goals in the right system. I don't know if you can talk anyone into that with how he played towards the end, like I said, but he still did end up with 13 goals this year with that good first third of the year. But it's just unfortunate to see him really just fall off a cliff this year. I love Cam the person, and I want to see him succeed, but I just don't think it's going to be here. I think they're likely going to have a divorce, whether it's by a buyout or a trade. I think there is a possibility with a trade, but we'll see. It stinks because I love Cam. He's such an awesome dude. He is such a good person, but I think the writing's on the wall there, as you mentioned earlier in the video.
Yeah, but I think that's a buyout. I do. I think that Torts and Cam have already talked. They got a very, very good relationship and still do. And I think that, with the way Cam talked at his exit interview was definitely the Flyers front office already telling him, or John Tortorella for that matter, because they have such a good relationship. And this will not ruin their friendship at all. They really have
relationships. Cam mentioned they have a relationship on the ice and off the ice. Them as a coach to player is different from the way they are
exactly.
off the ice.
And if Cam will be honest, and he was, he just wishes he could play, be better. But it was one of those seasons where it was a trying season for him because of coming back from injury, and it's a lot harder to just rebound. Yeah, but it's a lot harder to just rebound after missing such a lot of time. After missing a full season, but it is what it is. But I think the writing's on the wall for at least a buyout or possibly get moved at the draft. And that's why I say the capital that they had, the capital that the Flyers have in terms of moving up possibly, Cam could be one of those pieces if you're filtered in and trying to give the team, hey, maybe here's a second round pick, extra on top. I don't know, but he has the potential at the very least to be moved at the draft, or a buyout before. Not sure, but he's definitely I've one that I don't see back next season.
I agree. All right. So with that being said, let's move into some off-season predictions. So what I was thinking, maybe who you think is potential to be gone, and maybe give me a player you think that they could potentially target as a little prediction. I'm going to give you one guy. So I'm going to start off here with some of the players that I think that are possibilities of being moved. I unfortunately think Scott Laughton is one of them. As we mentioned, Ryan Poehling looks like a guy that could potentially be the fill-in for Laughton and what he brings. And it stinks because he loves it here. Scott Laughton is born to be a Flyer. He's always played with balls and grit as well. He's someone who really has given up his body so many times, and he's really established himself as a true leader here. But when you're looking at this team long-term, I just don't see where he might fit when they need to try to keep getting a little bit younger and already have this potential replacement here. I could see him get moved to a team like Buffalo, who can look for some real leadership qualities for a middle six center. Laughton did have the best year, but I feel like he played better in the second half compared to the first. He really did start finding his game, I feel like, right before the trade deadline. He did kind of wander off towards the end, too, like the majority of the team did. But I think he had a pretty good February and early March. So I think you could get some decent capital for him. I don't think you're going to get the first-round pick that was rumored last year, but maybe you could get a second or a third for this guy. And, I think a team like Buffalo would fit very well in a leadership perspective for someone who could really look for a guy that could be a true locker room presence there. Obviously, Mark Stahl's likely gone. I think a guy like Eric Johnson is a possibility to get signed to another one-year deal. I think what he is as a true number 6, number 7 defenseman at this point. But I look at him as more as that next mentor guy that can help these young guys. He's won a cup in Colorado. He knows what it takes. And I don't think he's a guy that obviously you want to put in with major minutes. He's a third pairing guy at best at this stage of his career. But he could be someone that you can rotate in and out of the lineup. I think there's going to be a few guys that I think we're going to look at next year, that there's going to be some openings on this D. And that leads me to my next guy. I think Rasmus Ristolainen could potentially be moved. I know he dealt with some injury in the last quarter of the year, but when he was playing, I don't think he was all that bad. I think the last 2 years, he really showed that his game is starting to get more refined under John Tortorella. And I think he's really built up a little bit of trade capital. I don't know what his recovery timeline looks like from his surgery. I think he tore his tricep, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so he'll be able to start training by July, August.
So now is a guy like that still able to be moved after the?
Yeah, he can be moved. You can still be traded even if you're hurt. You just can't be bought out if you're hurt.
Okay. Yeah, so I think he's a possibility that they could end up moving him elsewhere to maybe get some more capital, maybe try to use him as a package deals for a young center. And that moves me into my bold prediction. This team needs a good center. And me and Cam had a little bit of a debate on this on our Sin Bin episode 6. My bold Flyers prediction is they find a way to acquire Martin Necas from Carolina. That's a team that is in a bit of a cap crunch. And I think they're going to have some real decisions to make, especially with their blue line. I think Brady Skay, they have Teravainen up, Jake Getzel's under, Drury's up, Pesci's up. So there's a lot of guys there. And obviously Necas is up, and I think he's going to command a decent deal. Seth Jarvis is up too. They have a lot of decisions to make. And I think with some of the guys and how much turnover they could potentially have at that blue line if they don't sign some of these guys, that I think Martin Necas could be the odd man out. I think that's a guy that you could potentially look for in a potential trade package to play some top 6 minutes in center. I think he's a guy that could really be redefined as a center. He played more as right wing this year in Carolina in that middle 6. 2 years ago, he had a 71-point year. This year, I think he put up 53 points, 54 points with Carolina. I'm not sure. But he did that with middle 6 minutes. I think if you put him with some legitimate scorers and some guys who can facilitate the puck, like a Morgan Frost or something like that, even if you don't instantly put him at center, I think it's a guy that could really – I think you're bringing him in to be a center. Yeah. But even if you eventually mesh him into that, I think that's a guy that could really fit with this team's system and structure.
I think the Flyers' big addition this season will be Matvei Michkov. I think he's coming over, and I see. I'm being dead serious about this, and I don't think they're going to have to go out and try to acquire a center because I think they already have one in Michkov. I think the Flyers' top line is going to be Forrester, Michkov, and TK. That's your Flyers' top line headed into 2024-25 season. I just think Michkov, the writing is on the wall. Everything is painting towards him coming over. Medvedev came out, spoke. I think those two sides have already talked. I think that. Matvei Michkov already was a little upset being left off the national team. And I think that honed in like, okay, they are trying to move on from me. They're not going to, they're just going to try to keep me in Sochi or wherever. And I think the two sides have talked rightfully so. But I think they were good conversations, not the bad conversations. So I think that Matvei Michkov will be your starting center for the Philadelphia Flyers. And people call me crazy or whatever. Yes, the John Tortorella tries to keep people on their natural side, which would be the right wing for Matvei, unfortunately. But in the preseason, Joel Farabee saw a game or two at the center position because they just wanted to see what they had. And I think that is when Matvei Michkov plays the center. I think that they're going to have a talk with him at training camp. I think the big press conference is going to be right after the draft, leading into the development Flyers development camp. I think that we will be there and that he will be rightfully introduced to the Philadelphia media at Flyers Dev Camp. I really firmly believe this because Dev Camp is right after the draft. I'm telling you, the biggest addition for the Flyers will be Matvei Michkov. One person I see gone is Igor Zamula. You're either going to choose Eric Johnson or Igor Zamula. You're not going to keep them both. The Flyers can't have 8 going into like they did this past season. Yes, the depth is nice, but you also, if Adam Jennings stays, if Ronnie Otard continues to grow, you have them on the back pylon there, just waiting in the wings. And I think that that's going to be a topic of conversation for Adam Jennings. Hey, don't go over because you could possibly be playing an integral role here. Maybe you'll be the first call up if you don't go over, if somebody gets hurt. in the event that somebody gets hurt. Maybe they talk to him and don't allow him to go to Sweden. I think there's conversations there. So you're either going to have Erik Johnson re-sign to the 1-year deal, like you say, Alex, which I think will happen, or you're going to have Igor Zamula move out, or Igor Zamula stay and Erik Johnson go. But I think that unfortunately they're going to have to make a decision there if they want to keep Zamula or not. But I have him out now on my list. Another person, obviously, that you have out is Mark Stahl. I have Cam Atkinson moving as well. But I also have, Scott Lawton as well. I just think that the writing is on the wall, unfortunately, with him continuously saying, I want to stay in Philly. I want to stay in Philly. It sucks. It really does, because Scotty is such an awesome guy. I'm going to tell you, he has taken my career as a journalist to a whole nother level. Scotty is always the nicest freaking person in the world. He's a person that I root for. I really do. He's that type of guy. I hope he doesn't go just because of the person he is and player he is, but I could honestly see it happening. But Cam Atkinson, I think, is gone. But yeah, Igor Zamula would be my guy that you're like, oh, really? He is moving? So.
How about you, Dylan? Let me. What do you think for the off-season predictions?
Well, I've been one to say we need to move Lawton, like, as much as I love him too, and like what he is off the ice and what he brings to the locker room and what have you. He's got a letter on his jersey. He's I wouldn't say he's the face of the Flyers, but after Drew left, it was Coots and Lawton to step up. And in my opinion, Lawton probably stepped up a little bit more than Coots has. Coots is kind of the quiet leader.
Back surgery, so
so it was kind of Lawton's room to kind of take over. He got the A. He was the only guy to get a letter. But at the same time, I would like to see him moved, but I don't know if he will be moved. It's been 2 straight years of the Flyers getting these offers, rumored offers, like first-round picks, this and that.
Yeah, there's a rumor St. Louis offered a first for him. I don't know how true that is, but that was the rumor.
And then, and even the way Danny Bear talked about him, like, I forget the exact quote, but he is like, there's not the right price for him for what he brings to the locker room. You couldn't overpay for him, which at the same time kind of worries me, because I think it is time to move on from him. But I think that door is closing now. You've had chances to move on from him prior. Why now? Like, why this offseason, not 2 seasons prior, or this season at the deadline? So I don't know if that window's open anymore. More on the defense, I think Jennings is gone. I think he goes home. Zamula's gone. Risto kind of on that fringe, possibly moved. Johnson, he comes back, 1-year deal. And then you still have Addard, you still have Andre. He goes to a 1-year or a one-way deal next year. So you kind of got to figure out where he fits. But I think Zamula's gone. Jennings probably goes home. It's just because I don't think he stays after, I just got 20 games at the end of the season, but I wouldn't have played those games if everyone was healthy. I would have still been in the AHL. I would have still been fighting to even be noticed. But he was the call up because everyone was injured, but I just don't think he stays. Zamula, I think his contract is up. I don't think they re-sign him.
I don't either.
Stahl, I don't know where he's going to go.
I think he's going to retire personally.
Yeah, we'll see.
I agree.
But yeah, I think I would like to see a D shake up. I don't know how much it's going to, but I would like to see it shuffled up a bit, and Andre and Addard and those guys kind of battle for it. Lawton's still a question mark. Atkinson's probably on the way out.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get anything in a trade for him. It's probably better you just buy him out.
I'd even take a 7th if you eat half the contract. To be honest with you, I love Cam, but the writing's on the
Yeah.
And then I have Farabee on the doorstep of the way out. I mean, he's been kind of like the mid guy for your top six, and just kind of test the market, see what's out there. Just he's kind of just a overshadowed guy. He doesn't really. There's not much to it. I mean, you don't really hear about him in the locker room that much. You don't really see him on the. He can be invisible at times. Like it's just there. I mean,
Yeah.
he could be a guy that you see go. So I mean, I got a lot of guys just on that fringe doorstep kind of area.
Mhm.
I don't know how many are actually going to go, but I
Yeah.
would like to see a bit of a shakeup this year going into
You know,
next.
it's interesting you bring up Farabee too. When I went down to Tampa Bay for the Flyers Lightning game, the one that we got absolutely destroyed in that I don't want to talk about. But before the game, I was pre-gaming at one of the bars there, and I ran into a guy with a Flyers polo, and I'm just I'm talking to him about it. He's like, and it's like, oh, you here for the game too? He says, oh, I'm one of the players' fathers actually. I'm like, oh, which one? He goes, oh, Farabee. I was like, holy crap. So I had a little 5-10 minute conversation with his dad. Really
It's
cool
great.
dude.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
good.
I asked him, how's his son like the city? So he loves it here. He absolutely
Yeah,
loves it. You can
yeah,
see it with how
yeah,
much he pretty
yeah,
much connects with the city. So, you know, I kind of have a little bit of a soft spot for Farabee now.
yeah. He's good. I like Joel. I like
So
Philly
He's a
Joel.
good guy.
Philly Joel.
I get the business aspect of it, maybe moving him. But and
Yes.
then there's the personal aspect actually, especially after talking to his
Yeah.
dad. He seems like
Yeah.
such a good dude, and his dad was
Yeah.
a good dude to conversate with. The business part of me gets it. The fan
Yeah.
part of me is like, I don't know if I want that because he just seems like an awesome dude. So, but
Yes.
I would get it if they move on from him too.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
and let's wrap this up with a little just Michkov talk. You already heard it from Jamey. He thinks he's coming aboard.
Absolutely.
Dylan.
100%.
Dylan, what's your prediction? Is Matvei Michkov lining up the Philadelphia Flyers on the opening night of 2024-25?
Well, I'm a little less optimistic than Jamie is, but that's always seems to be the case. But I mean, I can definitely see it. It's probably in the cards, especially after we saw Kolasov and Fedorov and all that
Yeah.
figure out.
That
And
could be a bridge way to bring a guy like him. They already seeing if Danny Briere somehow got a guy that was kidnapped by the Russian military over here, this guy is a magician. You need
Yeah.
to send him. The U.S. government needs to call him and send him to the next Russian negotiating meeting. So he's pulling this magic. But sorry,
Yeah.
Dylan, to interrupt. Continue.
it's all good. I mean, yeah, and it's reported SKA and Danny and them have a good relationship. And I mean, obviously everyone has good relationships with Keith Jones and those boys. So it's definitely in the cards. It would be a huge, huge deal, especially for what Michkov was rumored to be at the draft, and this guy that's not going to be here till 2026, 27. He's not. He's probably the second overall pick in any other year if he's not
First overall,
Russian.
probably 80% of drafts.
If Connor Bedard isn't there, and if he's
Yeah.
not Russian, and if there's not all these political issues, like
Mhm.
he's knocking on the door of being that next guy. And if it's earlier than that, then that's incredible. And that's like something that needs to be focused on. You need to build around him. Like it starts with Michkov, and that's how the Flyers, I think, see it. That's why they took that risk. And Danny Briere knows his way around, and I think he could get Michkov over here, and it would be huge for everyone involved. And then all the other fans that said he wouldn't be here ever, and the Habs fans who
Oh, man.
didn't want him, like it would be a big blow up for sure. And
Oh,
I think it would be really
I think
good.
Montreal and Philly is going to develop a little bit
Yeah.
of a rivalry in these upcoming years. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. But yeah, there's where there's smoke, there's fire. I
That's
have
right.
to agree. I'm now starting to put it where I'll be disappointed if he doesn't come this year because of how much it's starting to be brought up.
Yep.
Who was it that had the original first article that brought that up? That the possibility.
It was a Russian.
Yeah. So when you look at that, it's like you're not going to bring that up if there isn't something that's actually happening Like the I feel like it's over 50% at this point. I feel like it's about a 70% chance that we end up having Michkov here opening night. Because why bring up all this stuff if you don't think it's actually the path has been laid down? As Dylan mentioned, you had the Kolosov and the Fedotov negotiations, and that could be the bridgeway to bring these guys over here. The fact that Danny Briere has made such a great relationship with some of these Russian teams, it's absolutely incredible how well he's worked some of these magic acts to bring two of these goalies that we weren't even 100% sure, especially Fedotov, with all the crap this poor kid has gone through.
And look,
he got him here is incredible. Absolutely incredible. I never thought we were going to see him in a Flyers uni after what.
Yeah, I never did either.
So, when you see what Danny did with a guy like that, what's to think that he can't pull it off again? What's really
he will, and he's going to be the ninja, the secret guy, bringing him here.
Jamey's already got his nickname for Michkov.
Absolutely, dude. He's going to be on the roof of Voorhees at the training center. I'm serious about this, man. Like a dark knight. I'm keeping an eye on you. You know what I mean? Watch. I'm serious, man. He's going to have his cape up there.
I know I said I wanted to wrap it up with the Michkov thing. I want to add one last thing, and then we'll call it at that. One small little thing. Who is the one prospect you would like the Flyers to draft with the first-round pick this year?
Ooh.
Let's end it with that.
There's a lot.
Well, it depends. You're looking at do the Flyers go defense if Michkov agrees to come? If that's the case, I think you draft the defenseman. But as it stands right now, we don't know if he's coming. So I'd like to see Yzerman.
That's me too. You beat me to it. And a little known fact about Cole Yzerman, he is a Newburyport, Massachusetts resident, which is my girlfriend's hometown. Her family actually has a pretty cool.
Well, there you go, man. Smart man.
So now I kind of want him here for that little extra pizzazz.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see. I think Cole Yzerman, somehow if Tidjaginla drops, that would be cool. And maybe that dude Catton, too. He looks like a potential future centerman as well. So one of those three. I think I would like to.
I just think Catton's going too high. I think he's going to go a little before.
I think so, too. But he's a guy, a trade-up candidate possibly.
No, yeah.
How about you, Dylan?
I mean, you guys know I like the prospects. It really depends on how this draft board falls. I think within even the top 5, it's going to be a lot more shaken up than obviously prior years because there's no set top 5. I don't think it could go like any way. It's not. There's 4 top guys and then it just drops off. Well, even last year,
there's another drop off around like pick 14 from what I've heard too.
Even last year, like I don't think we're ever going to see a draft like last year. That was unbelievably stacked. Like there was first round picks. It was unreal.
I could not believe Zach Benson dropped to 13.
Zach Benson,
astonishing to me.
That bugged me. That if we didn't get Michkov, that was the guy I wanted.
Yeah, I wanted my 3 guys of Michkov, Benson, and Leonard. I wanted one of in that order.
Yeah,
Benson
I like
is
Benson.
Unreal. But looking at this, if Yakubchuk falls, I love him as a defenseman. He's another Calgary kid. He's a hitman. He's a beast at 6'3". Like I've watched him grow too. He's unreal. I like my WHL guys. I love Iginla. I think Iginla is going to be one of those guys like how people looked at his father when he was drafted. He wasn't really anything like too crazy, but he played almost to an unreal level for Calgary. And unfortunately, I think Calgary is probably going to draft his son just obviously because that's the way it goes. Just draft for the name there. And I don't think it will be a bad pick either. I think people are going to look at it and be like, why would you do that? But I think he rightfully is in the top 10 conversation. I like Yzerman. I haven't really paid too much attention to him, but I wouldn't mind him as a pick. And then, I mean, it also depends on where the Flyers fall. If they somehow move up, like if they win the lottery without trading up or doing something, I like Lindstrom. I like, I don't even know how to say his name, the defenseman, Levenskov.
Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. This is about right.
Yeah, he's second or third in there. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys, and whichever way the Flyers go, I mean,
too.
Yeah, Demidov's in the conversation. Like, there's so many possible gateways, and there could be a few wrong choices. Like, I don't think it's like last year where you cannot go wrong in the first round, but there's still a lot of options, and I think hopefully the Flyers make the right one. But yeah, it just ultimately depends on how the board falls and how the lottery goes. So we'll see.
It's going to be an interesting summer. All right. I think that'll wrap it up, boys. I want to thank both of you guys to come on to the show. I
Absolutely.
plan on doing a few more of these over the summer. So if you guys want to come on again, I'd be more than happy for it. It was an awesome show today. Thank you guys for coming on and talking Flyers hockey. It was a blast. But with all that being said, any closing remarks, guys?
Yeah, just thank you for having me on. Thanks for thinking of me. Thanks for thinking of Dylan. Dylan does a great job. He's a great counterpart. An awesome ass site, the Flyers nitty gritty. The guy's always very upbeat and stuff, and that's what we look for. But Alex, you're the man. You have a great show here, and I'll definitely come on in the future. Just let me know. DM me. I'll come on anytime.
We can get Sam on for next time. But
thanks to Rick too. Rick was, Rick's in the back. You know what I mean. But Rick does a great job too.
Fantastic producer.
Take care, guys.
Right.
Guys, have a good one.
Have a good night. With all that being said, let's go Flyers. We'll see you next time.